Hello and welcome to another episode of the Property Lifestyle Mastery Podcast. I'm Jackie Tomes, and on this show we are having open and honest conversations about that journey of building a property investment company, a property portfolio that ultimately gives you freedom. So we're sharing all of the highs and the lows and the lessons that we've had along the way so that you can leverage that knowledge to make your own journey easier and more enjoyable. And today we're talking about business planning. I'll be joined by the awesome Dom, and we're talking about how you can make sure you bring the pieces of the puzzle together when it comes to your business plan so that you can efficiently do more deals. We've been through so many different iterations of how to use business plans, having used too much, not enough, and we're always learning, but we've settled on, I feel, really good equilibrium at the moment. So today we're going to be giving you an overview of the property strategy business planning tool, which has been inspired by BGI's strategy on a page. So we're taking you through all the different elements that are encompassed as part of that business plan so that you can start really zeroing in on what really matters when it comes to growing your portfolio and doing more deals. So without further ado, here's myself and Dom.
Hey Dom.
Hey Jackie.
Here we are. I'm parked up in some random place in the middle of France by a little river. And
Nice.
It seems like a good time to talk about business planning. And I thought that was a really nice conversation for the two of us to have, because I think there's a lot of history behind how we know each other when it kind of comes to business planning. So maybe a nice place to start would be what is business planning from your perspective, and why do you think it's something that people should do?
You know what? Whenever someone says business planning, I always think of the quote by Dwight Eisenhower. He said, "Having a plan means nothing. Planning is essential." And in short, another way of saying that is that, we have to do the thinking about what it is that we're creating. And we have to think about all aspects of the business, the foundations, the values, the vision, the mission, the numbers, everything needs to be thought about carefully. But then once you're up and running, or even you start, actually that plan doesn't really, it is relevant, but also we've got to adapt. We can't stick to something so rigidly that we don't get it done. So planning for me is an essential task. Some people spend way too long planning and never get out the starting blocks, and other people don't have a plan at all, and wonder why they're not getting anywhere. And there's these other people who also start out the blocks and still get somewhere because they're just great at executing and getting stuff done. But it maybe is possibly not as organized as it could be if they had actually done some planning. So it's one of those ones, you need to do the thinking, but you also need to be really adaptable once you've got started. Yeah.
Do the thinking and do the doing. And I
Right.
think that, to me, one of the things I want to get to on this episode is what's that balance between strategic thinking and planning and business planning and execution and doing. So that's one of the things I really want to explore today. But I thought it was a nice sort of background to how we know each other. So obviously your background is in, you got into business coaching, and that's kind of how we came to find out about each other. And that was in, oh my God, what year would that have been? 2014, I think.
Yeah.
No, 2014. It's funny. I read something you wrote the other day about dates, and I was like, I think I remember these dates possibly slightly more clearly than Dom does. I was like, 2014, I think, was the first time we spoke.
Wow, gosh. Yeah, it goes back a long way. Yeah, because my background was as a business and skills advisor, working with over 2,500 small businesses. And one of the things we did with every single business was business planning. That's what we got the coaches and mentors to work with that business on, was to create a plan. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. And so many businesses don't have plans, or if they do, it kind of maybe sits on a shelf because it's a really long document, and no one looks at it again once it's been created, and maybe it gets created once a year. But actually, do they reference it? Do they go back to it? Does anyone read it? Does anyone know about it? Does the staff know about it? No, of course not. So I found my old business partner, Derry, and he did a strategy on a page. And that was where we met through that sort of training. And it went from there. So, and you did something brilliant. You adapted it for you and your customers, for the property industry.
Yeah, but that was only after using it for maybe 5 years or something. So we obviously spoke to you initially in 2014, and that was about going on like a business retreat, and that was all about creating your business plan, which got me very excited because I'm a massive planner by nature. And yeah, then did eventually go on that business retreat in 2015, and that was all about using this one-page plan called Strategy on a Page. And it was just like such a revelation for us in terms of like, I don't know, just like a one-page tool to be able to get everything down and to force you to think it through and to write it down really clearly. And it was a revelation for us at the time because we were just in like property investment spaces at that point where it was just really purely about the execution, where it was just like, just go and do things, basically just throw a load of mud at a wall. And some of it will stick, but you work so damn hard along the way and you're not really clear what you're doing, why you're doing it, so you're comparing yourself to everyone else. So for me, this tool is obviously just a tool. It's really, you for me, Derry was brilliant at getting us to like think about it, and he kicked our ass in terms of how we were using it. And yeah, so for me, it forced us to start to first of all realize how much we were doing, because what we didn't realize was this tool called Strategy on a Page, really it's one per business, or even once you get to like bigger companies, it could even be like one per department. Like you could have multiple ones of these. And so we were on this retreat in 2015 and we were like, right, so we're doing single lets, we're doing some 1 to 2 bed conversions, we're doing title splits, we're looking at commercial conversions and developments and rent to rent and training other people and mentoring other people. And so we ended up with like 7 or 8 pages over this like 3-day retreat, trying to make this business plan for all of them and wondering why we basically only probably completed in total across all of them maybe 40, no, maybe even 20% of them, because it was just like, whoa, this is a lot,
too much.
And you know, I'm sure that Derry tried to get us to like rein it in, but you can't hear it until you've really gone through it sometimes. So we tried to forge ahead with this many and subsequently realized this was totally unachievable, trying to juggle this many things. So I think that for me has been one of the big lessons, particularly in property, is learning when it becomes another business and when it's just evolving the existing thing that you're doing, and that being an important part of you know, one of the first parts of actually being able to create a strategy in the first place. If you don't know what business you're creating it for, you can't even do it.
Yes, exactly. And for me, the thing that the Strategy on a Page did was to help me understand all of the most important aspects of a business. Because often we start a business, whether we're working in someone else's or whether we're creating our own, but we've never actually been educated as to what are all the key aspects of a business that we have to get right and we have to execute on a regular basis. And actually, it's all very well executing on stuff, but actually, have we got the foundations in place? Have we got the reasons why? You know, the purpose behind it, the what it is that we're aiming for, the culture, the values, the USP, all of those aspects that actually, if we understand all of those things really well, then we know whether or not we're building the business in a balanced way. That's absolutely key. That's one of the biggest learnings I got from learning about business planning. The other one is, knowing how many different businesses, as you say, and it comes down to, well, who's the customer? Because ultimately, you're solving a problem, and therefore, who's the customer, and what is it that you effectively need to provide for that customer? If you've got more than one customer, then actually that's a separate plan. But separate plan. And so for property owners, people who are in property, very often they haven't realized it, but there's 2 immediately. There's the tenants that you're creating the property for, and there's also investors, you know, who you're raising money from. And then on top of that, there could be others. It could be, you know, if you're looking for motivated landlords, then that's another business plan as well. So it's, you know, 2 or 3 business plans if you're in property. Just for the listeners, if you're not already aware of that, that is the case.
Well, that's for me why I iterated the page for property, because that is crazy to have a different page for all of those different things. And like, this is for me where that balance between planning and perfection versus just clarity and getting stuff done, that's where I then said, look, Strategy on a Page is brilliant, but I think it just needs a few key tweaks to make this purely focused for property investment businesses. So we credit Business Growth International, which is where we learnt with Derry about Strategy on a Page, as part of, they were the inspiration for our page, but we've just shifted it to make it only for property investment companies. And that's why, as part of the foundations, part of that, there's a few, like, obviously deals is another area that I didn't mention there. That's like, you have to know what sort of deals you're going to do. Right. Arguably your deals are kind of like, where, it's not a human being, there's a human being that sits alongside it, but where does that fit? So as part of our foundation area of our page, we have business model, which for me is, are you doing commercial conversions? Are you doing HMOs? Like, what's the actual model that you're focusing on? And then what is the criteria for the deals that you're actually working on? Which is a kind of a different way. It's like your deal avatar, basically. You've then got your avatars, which I put avatars plural on there because I think we've got to be able to say we've got maybe an investor one or maybe a tenant one. But sometimes it can just be good to go, like, what's the primary avatar that we're really focusing on? And it can obviously shift and adjust as you get into your rhythms. And then what's the service, obviously, that you're providing to your avatars, whether that's motivated landlords or tenants or investors. And then mission is the last part of it. I changed mission from passion, because passion was on strategy on a page. Yes. But for me, there are so few people in property that truly have a passion for it. And I got a bit fed up of hearing, and some people, this is genuinely true and it's genuinely a passion, but a lot of people say this and it's just a post-rationalization of why they're doing it. Yeah. I just love transforming rundown properties into beautiful homes. Now, some people do, but not everyone that says it actually really does have a passion. Like, will that passion, will it bring you through when your bridging finance is about to come to an end, when an investor's really giving you grief, when the tenant's hating on you for something that you've not done well enough, when the refurb isn't going to plan, it's going over budget? Like, all of these things, if you're truly passionate, you'll still be lit up by the fact that you are passionate about that thing. And that is not the case for most people.
That is so true, and it's a very good point. I would say the majority of the people I know who work in property are not passionate. I would say it's probably, maybe 10 or 20% of people who are really passionate about property, and even then it's an aspect of it, whether it's the refurbishment and getting that bit right, or doing the deal and negotiating with someone like that. Oh yes, I got it. The deal's been finalized and we've cracked it. It's an aspect of it. It's never sort of the whole lot. And there's always aspects that we don't like. And yeah, I think that's probably true of most businesses. A lot of people who are employed, for example, they don't love their job. They do it because it pays the bills. And if there's aspects of it that they enjoy, then that's fantastic. But actually, sadly, a very large percentage of people don't even like their jobs. They just do it because they've fallen into it.
I think it's far more likely that someone has a passion if it's like they've started their own business. I think you're more likely to find a passion in there, like someone started out their own carpentry business, or I don't know, something that is like there's a thing that you've seen that you're drawn towards and that you really love. I think you do see more passion there. It kind of other crap gets in the way and kind of can really test you. But yeah, so that's for me why with the property strategy business plan we went with mission, because I feel like what's the reason kind of why we're doing this, what are we kind of pushing and driving towards, just felt like a more helpful driving force than passion, unfortunately, in property.
Absolutely. And I've always said it, and so again, is that property is a vehicle, at any business is a vehicle for your self-actualization. So actually, if you're doing something you can see the worthy cause, the mission, as you've said, then you can become more who you are on that vehicle of property. So foundations, you said, is one aspect, core aspect, and you've sort of broken it down into those different areas. What are the other aspects of the plan that you use?
So yes, and the next ones, vision and values. Now they have both copied directly across from strategy on a page. It's just really the fundamentals of the vision is the big flag stand that you're aiming towards, split out across a few different areas to make sure you've got a good balance about what you've thought about from like in terms of a business perspective and in terms of your life perspective. So we have 5 different boxes to cover that. And then values, which is for us, this is the values of the business. Now, there's more personal values, which I know you're very big on, Dom. Personal values versus business values. So maybe let's just differentiate those here as well. So for me, from a business values perspective, it's like this is what we're using to help us build the team. Like, what are the attributes of the sort of people that we want to be working with in order to guide who we hire, who we work with, who we don't work with. So it could be problem solving or tenacity or support. Like, these are some of the values that we have that we use to hire people by, and that's what the business values are. What are personal values in different?
Yeah, so values are, definition would be principles or standards that are important to you. And values not only are helping you make decisions in every moment, but they're also, in the case of business values, they're generative of behavior. They create behavior. And that's why it's really important to, yes, understand your own personal values, the ones that you didn't know you had, possibly, that you become conscious of. And as a result, you can make faster and better decisions based on your values. So you can go, yeah, this aligns with who I want to be and who I am becoming more of. Business values, if you get those in place, they will create a culture. They'll create behaviors in the organization so that when you go to a member of staff, we need to have a conversation about values. They know immediately, oh, I know what that's about. Because they have done or haven't done the behavior that's involved in that particular value. That's why it's so important to get the right values in your organization. And they don't have to be set in stone. I know one organization, they put as a value, it was a big company, they had 300 plus staff in the call center. They said no bitching, backstabbing or complaining as one of the values, and so people would started spotting it in the coffee room, and actually they're like, oh look, she's complaining, or he's complaining about this, or she's bitching about that, whatever it might be, and they started spotting it in each other, and so that sort of culture decreased. And once it had gone down enough or disappeared, that's when they replaced the value with something else which is a bit more positive, that enabled them to be aspirational and creative, rather than sort of cracking a whip effectively by helping people spot what they were doing wrong. So that's the difference. That's how I differentiate. What about vision then? Because some people, what's the time frame on vision? For some people it's difficult, they can't think too far ahead.
I think somewhere between 5 and 10 years is a pretty good time frame, just far enough away that you can't really see how you're going to get there. Life could be incredibly different by that point. So it's your vision, a year vision is too soon. So it's got to be far enough away that you're like, oh, there's a real disconnect between where I am now and there, which enables you to be a bit more free range with your thinking and not so limited by where you are right now. So 5 to 10 years. Dave and I quite like 10 years.
Yeah. And it's amazing how much we can achieve, because if we think back 10 years, who were we then? Not a patch on the people we are now. It's incredible how much we can change. And people, as they say, you probably heard it before, overestimate what they think they can achieve in a year, but they underestimate what they can achieve in 5 and 10 years, certainly. So it's kind of being aware of that and knowing that the vision is longer term, and you'll never get there because you'll adapt it and evolve it en route. And that's why having a plan is it means nothing, because you will adapt it, but planning is absolutely essential. So we got foundations.
So vision,
sorry, go on.
Foundations, vision and values are the first ones we've covered, and then we start to come into the actual creation of the plan to get there. So this is kind of just putting the peripheral stuff around that. So the foundations are, obviously use the property analogy with the decision for that title of that. It's like what we've got to have in place to be able to make decisions from a place of clarity. And actually only one box that I should mention at this point, the bottom right hand corner of the page is called Ideas Bank. Now this is basically a necessity for people in property, because we are surrounded by shiny pennies, lovely exciting new ideas that we all want to do. So that Ideas Bank is like, we make the decision with foundations about what we're going to focus on, and then everything else goes into the ideas bank for future, and we don't put any valuable brain space on it, because there's a tax if we start thinking about things that are not for now. So then you've got your vision, which defines where you're heading towards, the values that define the culture that you're going to put in place and that's going to run through everything. And so then we start to come to the actual plan to make that happen. And I'm constantly iterating how I like as with everything we do, we're like a culture of constant improvement. Like everything is always iterating based on new stuff that I learn, which is one of the reasons we've got the property strategy business plan, is because I used strategy in a page enough, and I was like, no, this is not working for me. I need to tweak some of these things. It's not entirely new. It's just like a tweaking and refining. It's just basically our vibe. So I'm always iterating this still when I learn new things. So my current best iteration of this is 3 different areas of strategy: quarterly, annual, and destination. So the destination strategy is basically never going to really change. It is split out into 5 key areas to cover the different departments within your business. Generally, this is going to be in a property investment company, sourcing and acquisitions, funding. So that's both the marketing and sales for funding and deals. So one thread for each. The delivery, which is the operational delivery of how we're actually doing the thing, whether that's refurbs, conversions, property management. Then you get into financial management, and then team. So we're not going to. The plan for subsequent episodes is that we're going to start deep diving on some of these different different areas. There's whole episodes on them. So this is really just setting the scene for what it's comprised of. But the destination strategy is, what does ideal success look like in a property investment business across those different areas, so that they are if I can achieve this success across those areas, my vision says I'm going to be in a hammock sipping a Mai Tai on the other side of the world. That all will work, because that's what the business is working like that, which enables me to have this is the idea. So that's pretty much a fixed strategy.
Yeah, nice. So that was quarterly, annually, and destination strategy, the three.
Yes. And then, so it's good to set the destination first. It's almost like we're doing it in reverse order, because otherwise you get executional, tactical too soon. Foundations, vision for where we're heading, then head to the destination strategy. How does the business need to look across each of these areas to help me to achieve this? And then we go, okay, so this year or next 12 months, what should I be focusing on in order to get myself there? Again, there's 5 key boxes. Doesn't necessarily have to be sourcing and acquisitions, funding, delivery, financial management, and team, because actually team might not be relevant right now. Actually, it could just be that getting the business off the ground and all sourcing and acquisitions and funding makes more sense. So that's the annual. So you decide, what are my strategic priorities over the next 12 months that are going to move me in the direction of my vision? What's the most highest priority things to start with? That's your annual. And then you've got the quarterly, which we use the terminology of rocks, which maybe we should touch on in a second. So it's the quarterly priorities. Again, put your vision out your mind, put your destination strategy out your mind, focus on your annual strategy, and say, what are my next steps over the next 3 months to get me in the direction of where I want to be a year from now? And same thing again, it might not be that it's one across each of those 5 different business functions. It could be that actually team is a real priority this quarter, or process creation is. So we can lean into those if that's more the priority. But the thing is, with the whole of this process, it's really about, like, you're panning for gold, you're sieving down, so that all you have is a set of quarterly rocks, and it's like, forget about everything else for now, let's just execute on these rocks. And then with Dave and I did another episode recently about what that then does to your monthly and your weekly. But in terms of the big business planning, kind of that's where it ends, and we look in on that once a quarter.
Nice. What made me laugh just then internally was that before we came on this call, you were saying, because I'm throwing loads of ideas at you, but also you just said you're constantly refining. So it goes although we're always improving things to the listeners, it's really important to do it at regular intervals, but not all the time, because some people never execute enough because they're always trying to improve something before they've even got going. So how often, Jackie, do you look at this? I mean, I think the answer should be fairly obvious, but how often do you look at your business plan, and how often do you tweak things?
So we will only, from a big picture perspective, look at all of this really once a year, unless something fundamental shifts, which it can do. And it's not always, when something fundamental shifts, it's not always that we just go, right, we need to sit down for a day and review all of this. It's kind of just like a framework in our mind for discussion. Like Dave and I will sit on the motorhome driving for 6 hours from the French Alps to England and go, actually, the business isn't working. It's just like a framework to help us to make decisions. So really only once a year from a whole business perspective. But in terms of the quarterly rocks, once a quarter, what are the priorities that we're going to focus on this quarter, and just reset them. And loads of ideas come in through the quarter, and often from Dom, who is sending me loads of things. And I'm like, no, Dom, not now. But then once a quarter, I'm like, okay, now I'll consider the new ideas and say, okay, we have maybe 50 new ideas here for what we could work on. I only want 5 of these in my awareness, because otherwise I'm going to be just overwhelmed, and I don't want to be overwhelmed. Like, my objective this year is focus on one thing at a time and just like enjoy it and have the space. And like, that's why too much going on is just, I want less of it in my life. And it's for me, it's a habit to do too much. I'm having to train myself to say no even more and do even less, so that I can just have the space to enjoy stuff more. Anyway, that's a personal theme of mine this year. So yeah, once a quarter is the long answer to a short question.
That's what I thought. That's what I had written down, thinking I think she's going to say a quarter, and I'm pretty, because that's what we do. So okay, and it's all very well having these things that we execute on a quarterly basis, but how do we know if the plan is working, or do we even not look back? I mean, what metrics do we use to measure?
Yeah, good question. So that's the kind of the last area that we haven't really. Oh no, sorry, two areas left. One of the areas we haven't touched it is called targets. This is specific numbers-based targets that we want to aim ourselves towards. And I normally say in this area, you want to think about the year. So like, what is it that would show you if you've been successful or not a year from now? Maybe how many deals have you done? How much finance have you raised? Like, well, a big picture, maybe number amount of cash flow. So what's the key target? There's 8 spaces there. Don't have to fill up all of them, but your targets are the things, the big success markers that we're going to look at and aim towards over the year. And then we want to have more of a monthly rhythm around key performance indicators, KPIs. Start with monthly, you can go to weekly too, but let's start with monthly. What are the key numbers that you've got to be achieving to send you in the direction of those targets? So the targets are more like lag measures, like finance raised, cash flow, deals done. So that's the end result of progress. But what are the more of the lead measures that we can help ourselves with along the way? Maybe number of networking events attended, amount of posts on social media, number of investor meetings, deals analyzed, like these kind of numbers that we can be like, right, let's have targets for these on a monthly basis, which are your key performance indicators. And that's just really making sure that you're building the rhythm and momentum on a monthly basis.
So lead measures, in summary, are things that you do that lead what you're going to take, the action you're going to take, and lag measures is kind of what you've achieved, and what numbers you have hit. So that's an important differentiation, because a lot of people put numbers in and they haven't decided whether or not they're reactive or proactive numbers that or lead or lag measures rather. It's a good way of thinking about it. So and the
lead ones are good.
Sorry,
John. I was going to say the lead measures are really great. Like, and if you're at a specific stage in the business, because the people that we're really focusing on with this the most are clients on our Deal Maker Accelerator program, which is our scale up program for people who are already doing deals but want to do more in a more efficient way. And for us, we use KPIs every single month to monitor the progress with clients. And it's quite a small list of KPIs that can really be in reality when you're in that specific phase of growing a property company. And it's great because we can essentially tell your future by how well the KPIs are going. Because what we found was, sometimes people wouldn't really be, over the course of years of working with people, they're just going so slowly, like it should be going faster. But it's really hard to make people realize, particularly those who aren't timing conscious people. You're like, another month's gone by and you haven't moved enough forward, another month, and a quarter, another quarter. And you're like, whereas now we can go, okay, well, you've not done your KPIs this month. That's going to mean that you're in danger of not doing this over the next year. And if that happens for another month and another month, you're like, look, this is fine if you don't want to do it, but you're not going to get the results. And that has been a really great shift for us to be able to like light a fire under people, to be like, because they're like, it's only March. I haven't really hit my KPIs so far. I'm like, well, actually, this does matter if you want to get deals secured in 2024. Like it can easily take 3 to 6 months to get a deal completed. If you fart around for another quarter, this is very unlikely that you're really going to get this move forward this year. So get a freaking grip and do it. And that's what the KPIs have enabled us to do.
There we go. It makes it black and white whether or not they've done or they haven't done what they said they're going to do. Because an awful lot of people are brilliant and they've got a gift of the gab and they can talk about stuff they've done, but actually numbers don't lie. So it is just, and it's great for focusing the mind. When you've got those numbers on your wall, and that's why I give people wall charts to go, okay, these are my KPIs, these are the things I've got to hit. And that is what is defining what you're doing that day. Because you've got to hit those numbers, and you do, and then it's magic. The difference it makes when people follow and hit the numbers, the results they get is like, it's night and day. It's just ridiculous how brilliant it is at helping people focus. But yeah, some people like to avoid that quite a lot, particularly the ones, yeah, who like to talk a lot and say great things, but actually they're not very good at executing. So yes. Are there any
And
other
I guess
aspects of the? Sorry, go on.
of the page, sorry, John. You're right. Let's finish off that, and then I kind of got a lead on from that I think we should go talk to bring this all together. So the last area is brand, and I've left it to the end because I think it is the least important one when you're doing your business planning for the first time. So as part of that, you've got promise, USP, unique sales proposition, and key message. And this is really refining what you are articulating externally to the world.
Yes.
Don't worry about this stuff yet if you're not even clear what your service is.
Right.
It's more important to be able to articulate your service than it is to be able to articulate why your service is unique. Actually, for if you're a small business, particularly in property, it doesn't have to be unique. Like, really, you being who you are and an authentic person is going to make you unique. So I wouldn't even worry about that. Once you get into your more marketing messaging, like, what's the key message that I want to communicate externally, and the promise that you're making to your clients, whether that's investors or tenants, whoever that may be. That's the last part, but really it's kind of like the icing on the cake of this process for property businesses.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, uniqueness. Actually, you don't want to be too unique because people don't understand what you do and who you are. So actually, what's best is you are the uniqueness. People follow people. I follow Richard Branson, Elon Musk. I'm interested in those people, and they are the brand often of the company. People don't follow football clubs; they follow football players. Ronaldo's got more followers than all the Premier League clubs put together on social media. So it really is uniqueness is you. Okay, so those are all the different aspects of the page. What's the conclusion then, would you say?
The conclusion is you completing this page is not the answer.
Right. Yes.
It's like, for me, what when we first learned strategy on a page and started using that, I was like so excited about it, and I started working with people in property to help them create their strategy on a page, and that was what I was mentoring people on at that time, and it was great. But I realized that alongside, and I think particularly if you're listening to this and you're all excited about a nice business plan, just be aware that it's pointless having this lovely plan if you don't do it. And actually, before, I was quite perfectionist about the whole page. It wants to be complete, it wants to be really nice and succinct, well articulated, and now I'm like, just forget it, just get it done and get the bits of it done that really matter. Because actually it's better to have a half finished page of the bits that truly matter at that time, and to also be doing. And it's not the perfect answer, and the perfectionist within us is going to scream at you, but that is what I have come to the conclusion is the right answer. It's you've got to just know the right bits of this at the right time and be able to execute on that. And there are some people in this world who are the balance of both, and they don't even really need a business plan to do it. They just feel their way through it. They know their market, they know what they're doing, they focus and they execute, and it's not perfect, it's a bit messy, but it works. And so really you've got to find the balance of having enough structure and clarity and focus, which this is a tool that can help, but it isn't the be all and end all, alongside the chaos of being out there and doing it, but with enough focus to mean that you're not just slinging random mud at the wall. You're kind of picking up very intentional pieces of mud, giving it a nice smell to make it sure it's the mud that you're after, and sort of fling it more elegantly towards the wall. So it's just a more enjoyable process of mudslinging.
Yes. I love it. It makes me think, in my conclusion then, it would be that people often, they think, oh, what's the one thing I need to get right to grow my business? Oh, I need a brilliant business plan. Yes and no. You need something to get started with. You need a plan, but you must absolutely execute. You've got to have both. You can't have just one. You have to execute, plan and execute, plan and execute.
Absolutely. And that's for me why at the point of recording this, I think I launched the Dealmaker Accelerator program for the first time about 3.5 years ago. And that was basically as the result of me reflecting on this exact conversation and going, it's not just about business planning. And actually there's a load of very execution based programs in property. But where's that middle ground where it's focused and strategic action taking, but very focused on action taking? So that's really, for me, that's where the current iteration of how we're helping people on that program has come from, where, you know, if you pick the right people have got to come through, and we're really specific about who we work with, because you've got to be exactly the right phase of building your property business to be right for us to be helping you. But if you are, and you respect us and you trust us and you want to come in and just, we will guide that way for you and just trust the process, it is the path of least resistance to getting that balance of strategy and execution.
Lovely. That was one hell of a whistle-stop tour of the different areas of the property strategy business plan. So the one-page planning tool. If you like the sounds of that, there is a download in the show notes where you can download a complimentary copy of that one-page PDF document to start using in your own investing. And then what we're going to do over the coming months is we will start zeroing in onto the different areas of the planning tool in more detail, which is exactly what Dave and Dom are going to be doing next week, starting with vision. So how do you make your vision a reality? How do you create a great vision? And that's obviously a very important part of that one-page planning tool, and they'll be talking about how you make all that reality, but it's got this nice little space for you on the planning tool as well. So the business plan download link is in the show notes if you want to take action on that off the back of today. Until then, have a great week ahead.